Welcome to Body Empowerment. On today's episode, I have two very special guests with me. This is Susanna Grossman and Chloe Frankel. They are two of my best friends in the world. We all went to college together. And we're hanging out this weekend in Boston, and I wanted to take it as an opportunity to do a show, an episode on the importance of support systems, because these two individuals were and have remained a crucial part of my support system in my recovery process. And so I wanted to have us all have a conversation about how support systems work and what it really sort of specifically looked like with them supporting me through my recovery in its early stages and beyond. And also later we'll ask them some questions about what they both do professionally now. Susanna is an English teacher for high school students and Chloe is a social worker. So obviously they're both doing incredible things with body empowerment on a daily basis. And so it just seemed like an amazing opportunity. So welcome, yay!
Thank you. Thank you for having us. It's really exciting. Yeah.
So I guess we'll start with, a discussion. So for those of you that have watched for many years, part of my story is that I had an eating disorder starting in middle school when I was 11, and it continued through college and ended and I began recovery when I was 21. So for the first 2.5 years of college, I had an eating disorder still, and Chloe and Susanna were my friends, and through that, and so, and then they were, like I said, crucial with the beginning of the recovery. So do you two have any questions about that? Like what it was like being supportive and watching on any of that and what it felt like as friends?
Well, one of the things that always impressed me about you in your recovery was the candor with which you were willing to discuss it, which took a long time, I know, to reach. So I have very clear memories of eating with you at a specific place that you told me was a safe place for you because you knew exactly what was there that you felt okay with. And I think to be supportive in that regard, I just didn't question it. I trusted that you knew in your mind what would make you feel healthy and what would make you feel good. And it wasn't something destructive or to worry about, but it was really useful for me to know that that is how you conceptualized food, and it helped me just be a bit more mindful about what it was that you needed. And I didn't try to dissuade you otherwise. I mean, I just took it as, okay, this is what she needs for right now, and I can support that in a way that isn't enabling. And I think that's a big thing to worry about, or something to be considered of, the difference between having appreciation and mindfulness versus enabling. So if you maybe could talk a little bit about that distinction, like what is useful as support?
So enabling versus mindfulness?
Yeah.
So I think the openness and the honesty is like a crucial part of mindfulness. So knowing that you're surrounding yourself with individuals with whom you feel no shame. So I never felt ashamed to be myself around the two of you. Like I think I was, Chloe, we like lived in the same room at one point, and Susanna, I was saying to you the other day, I remember one time just like hysterically crying to you about how I really, like the deprecating feelings I had towards my body, and I wasn't ashamed to share that with you. So I think that the opportunity for mindfulness comes when you're around people that make you feel unashamed and uninhibited and therefore safe. And in that safety, you're not enabled to do things that you would then feel ashamed for. So I never felt like you enabled me to dislike myself or be harmful to myself because if I was going to be honest no matter what, then what was the point of doing anything I'd have to hide or be ashamed of later on? Does that make sense? Do you have anything to add to the enabling mindfulness?
Enabling. Yeah. Well, I guess related and also on a slightly different topic, I feel like when I think about the time that we all met, we were freshmen in college, so we were like 18 years old. And when I think back to sort of our group of friends in college, I'm just aware of how many different factors there are going on for people at that stage in their life. So there's sort of academic achievement and extracurricular and body image and sort of sexuality and how you are in relationships in general. And I remember when we were freshmen, like really early on, kind of being around other girls at college who I sort of remember being like horrified by the way that they were talking about their friends, because they would sort of cut each other down, or they would be critical of each other, and this was like in the period right after Josh had died, and I just remember kind of overhearing a conversation between two girls about a friend of theirs, and I was like, the thought in my head was like, there's just not enough time in life to not love each other and care about each other, and I remember being really grateful that we had sort of started to build a friendship that just felt so like mutually respectful and loving.
I mean, the word like unconditional comes to mind.
Yeah.
And also like kindred spirits.
Well,
and
there's never
think,
any competition.
That's such a good point, that we're like high achieving intellectual women, but we were never I never felt any competition because we were only interested in supporting one another to be our best individual selves, and that created like a really strong group unit and a group community. And so when there wasn't any like cutting down or competition to destroy one another, but instead like encouragement to support one another, there was like what a healthy environment.
Right.
I don't really know how we ended up like that.
I think that kind of goes back to what Susanna was saying, which was, for me, what enabled that is that I felt like you were so willing to share things that you were struggling with and kind of willing to share that vulnerability. And so, like, there was no... I always really appreciated that about you and found that really admirable, because I think a lot of people struggle to kind of show their darker sides or what they're struggling with. And I think one thing that seemed to me to make a big difference in your recovery is that you were really good about asking for help and being very clear about what you needed.
Right.
And I was curious about sort of how you developed that skill.
That's a really good question. So I was not good at asking for help early on. I think that's a lot of why my eating disorder lasted for 10 years instead of like a few. So because of my play right now, which is about my eating disorder, I've had to revisit a lot of old journal entries from high school and junior high. And I think that I did not know how to vocalize my need for help. I knew how to vocalize my pain. And I think I was like pretty good at letting friends know I was in pain. So I was able to tell my closest friends and my group of friends and my family that I was hurting, but I could not articulate what they could do that could help me find release from that hurting and pain. So I feel like by the time we met, it was like a survival skill. The only way to survive was to ask for help. And the reason I cared to survive when we were in college was like going to an Ivy League college and finding like smart, intellectual, high-achieving friends is like a lifelong dream. So here I was with like one of my lifelong dreams. Why would I sabotage? Like I had sabotaged so much of my life already. Why would I not embrace like this passion and like dream I've had? So I think that the need to ask for help became a survival skill that I had to take advantage of in order to survive, to like enjoy myself. But it's a hard skill to develop, and it's one that I had to develop over time. I think I've gotten way better at it, like knowing like I need a hug. Will you please give me a hug? Like
we were always so happy.
But like I know how to do that now, and I feel like I also think that you can give yourselves credit for being like incredible friends that it felt safe to ask for help from.
Yeah.
But I think that part of that is like what makes you an individual that is conducive to honesty and authenticity is being honest with yourself. So both of you are like unapologetically yourselves, and I was attracted to that. No,
it's all too true.
I just don't know if it's a good thing.
Yeah,
it's a good thing. It's a good thing because, like, so I was attracted to that, obviously, and that was, I think we were an unapologetic bunch.
Right.
I think also a big part, and this is something that you taught me too, is that people like to be asked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I remember there was a point when I was struggling with that, and you were like, people want to help you. Like that's it makes them feel valuable, and it strengthens your relationship with them.
I feel like your candor allowed me to be similarly candid with not just you, but with the rest of our group of friends, because it demonstrated to me that, the worst that could happen is you realize that perhaps somebody isn't necessarily as much of a friend as you would like them to be.
Yeah.
And you don't need that if there's somebody else to help you. So, I mean, I feel like, your candor allowed me to be similarly open, again, in times of need for me, even if I didn't struggle with that specific issue or, certainly there are other things that affect all adolescents and young adults and continue to. But just having that model of behavior, I think, was helpful for me as well. To know that, I certainly would never deny anyone emotional support in their time of need, and therefore that wouldn't and shouldn't be denied to me either. So this reciprocity, I mean, and that's kind of, what proves real friendship. Without sounding so trite, but, and that was very helpful. And I mean, sometimes you can't help and you're not in a position to help, but you can make reference to and refer to people and services that can.
Yeah.
I mean, in talking about this, I guess, so I teach at a girls' high school, and I hope that the environment we create is one of support and empowerment. Often it isn't the case, and from what we've talked about, it seems sometimes like the answer is, it will get better, and that's a whole other school of thought. And once you get beyond the bounds of your very small network, and when you go out into the world and experience more, you will find a place for yourself. So, I always wonder, what can I say that will offer relief now, immediately? Like, how can I help? What can we say? And you articulated this yourself when you said, when you were very young in middle school and high school, you could verbalize your pain, but you didn't have the self-awareness to ask for help yet.
Right.
So, as an educator, I wonder, what can I do to inculcate a sense of that?
I think letting someone know you're there, and I always say, like, the most important thing is is asking someone, if you see symptoms or signs of someone struggling with an eating disorder or an addiction or any self-destructive behavior, the question isn't, why are you doing that, or how can you stop? The question is, are you okay? How are you feeling? And what can I do to help support you in creating a safe outlet to share your feelings and to discuss them? So I think that that's what you can do. Like, I had my AP English teacher in high school was amazing in that way. I actually wrote a paper in AP English my junior year about having an eating disorder because I felt totally safe and comfortable sharing with her, because she had offered herself as a space for honesty. And that, I think that's it, right? Like, being a support. I mean, your profession is one that more deliberately is. You are a mental health professional, right? So how do you feel, I don't know, I mean, how does all of this relate to what you do in terms of support systems?
I certainly think what you're touching upon, which is kind of just being really non-judgmental, and making people feel safe, knowing that whatever thing that they're sharing that they might feel shame about, that they might feel conflicted about, that it's safe for them to share it, and that you can really validate that those feelings are normal and everybody has them, and you really just want to see the person get better.
Yeah.
I wanted to respond to something that Susanna was talking about, which I think is the other side of the coin, not just sort of finding out who your real friends are, but that I think the more you share, and this is a great thing that I see a lot doing group therapy, is that being willing to share that kind of stuff yourself, I think can be really empowering for other people, not just because it's sharing, but because I think in our group of friends, like, yes, we were sort of high-achieving, bright, you know, in many ways, I think people would think successful young women, but we all struggled with, like, serious stuff in college, and we had really hard times, and I think that one of the things that you became so much on campus is somebody who's willing to say, like, I'm both of these things. I'm somebody who's achieved a lot, and I'm also somebody who struggled a lot, and I think that it humanizes people to see that, and I think that it's really liberating to know, like, I can be imperfect and still be successful, or I can be imperfect and still be, you know, and still have other sides of myself. So I think about that a lot in my work, and I don't know. I'm trying to think of. We were talking last night a little bit about sort of what was helpful to you, like therapeutically and in terms of resources. So certainly, I think that I'd be curious to hear more about what kind of professional help you got that was useful.
I mean, so having supportive friends is crucial. If you can find support in your family, that's really important. If you can't find support in your family of origin, creating a family of choice is really important. So some sort of family and friend support network. I was personally able to find that support in my family of origin, but I know some people aren't. Professionally, having a therapist was crucial. I had lots of different professional support systems and individuals throughout my attempts at recovery. I personally did not do well with nutritionists and eating disorder experts. So ultimately, the support that was like finalized, the like shift into committed recovery, was therapy and being in a grief and loss group. So because part of the exacerbation and extension of my eating disorder was based on my brother's death, I feel like being in a group therapeutic space. So for me, it was grief and loss. I did not ever join a group eating disorder space, but that group was really important to me. So isolating the grief and loss and not letting it trigger the eating disorder and separating it. I just like feel like I have a really good therapist. I read some really important books. I always talk about Caroline Rothstein's When Food is Love. I think having some sort of practice that is healthy. So for me, that was yoga and meditation. And I actually like professionally learned how to meditate, like from an actual professional. So that was good. I studied and learned yoga from professionals, and that was important for me. And like having, but I like cannot speak highly enough of therapy. I think it's like so important. And then I was never an inpatient or outpatient, so I can't speak to either of those. I've talked about that in other videos. I think for some people, inpatient and outpatient programs can be crucial and like life or death. So obviously it's an individual basis, but no matter what, I like cannot stress the importance of therapy because recovery is a long process. It's not something that happens in 30 days of inpatient treatment. There's an entire process that happens afterwards. So no matter what kind of treatment or recovery plan you go through, you have to have, I feel like it's a family of origin or choice, a friend network, and a mental health support system. Like that to me is like the trinity of what like is crucial. And I felt like recovery worked when I had those in sync. Like I had friends that were open and honest with me. Like by that point we all lived together. And I felt like really I created a safe space for eating healthfully. And I had the right therapy, crew, and my family. I think at that point, because I was away from my family at college, I could actually forge really healthy relationships with them so that they could support me as best they could without like all of us being enmeshed in a home together. The disorder was away and we could like create really strong relationships together. I don't know.
Well, a lot of that has to do with, being in control and managing the disorder, which, so much for so many people is really about the exertion of control, about, things over which you have no control. So it seems like if you can recognize that and put in place concrete, things you can do and steps you can take, even if it takes a long time, just that knowledge that you're transferring, that desire for power and control over, something so beyond your capacity or like self-awareness, that sounds like it's really helpful as well.
Definitely.
So let me ask you, we're talking about ways that we support each other and have supported each other systemically. Like what can we do? Like, these are good mechanisms for helping someone cope and manage, but, and again, I think about this in my own work with teenage girls, how can I model for them, or how can I provide them with a model of, behavior and, how can I, be somebody to emulate in my own relationship with body image, my own.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. That's, anytime you hear the word systemic.
I will say I actually would love to hear from viewers on that. So, like, that's a great question for people to chime in on comment-wise, maybe with their own videos. So please share your thoughts to Susanna's question. I think also it's just knowing, like, if you're having knowing your support system, right? Like, so if you're struggling and having a rough day with regards to anything, emotionally, mentally, body empowerment-wise, knowing who your support system is so that you can go to that support system instead of projecting those concerns and struggles onto your students. And so not to make it seem like you never struggle. I think being honest if, you're having a rough day, but in terms of comments that are around your own sense of self, making sure that you're working through that with your own support system. So again, not that you're modeling for them perfection, because that's not real. No. But that you're modeling a strength for them, that if you even let them know you have a support system, like, it was Miss Grossman, like, you seem tired today. It was a really exhausting night, but I called a good friend and I feel so much better. Like, letting them know that you're practicing the same things you might suggest to them lets them, do you know what I mean? You don't have to tell them the details, but you can tell them the context of, hey, I also have support system. I'm a human being. Right. I don't know, does that,
I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah. I know that the three of us could talk for 500 hours.
And we have.
Unfortunately, YouTube does not allow for the Ken Burns documentary series on the Civil War. Does anyone else get that reference between besides the three of us? No, it's like 98 hours long. So, I think that we will close up this session. Any final thoughts?
We love you.
Yeah,
I love you.
We're proud of you.
It's really
and we're proud of the work that you do.
I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of the work you do. I think teachers and social workers are so important. I think you are I seriously do. I say this all the time. I think you are the most important professions. It is my teachers and social workers and friends. Yeah, okay. Is this getting too...
She's gonna try. That would be fun. All right. It would be fun.
I love you. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Chloe and Susanna, for being here. Yay.
Thanks for having us.